Right.
Jack,
Yes.
I do want to give an update on Claudia.
Oh, you had to throw a wrench in it. You had to throw a wrench in it. All right. All right, we're good. Let's get to my outline here. All right. We're going to continue in the book of Job tonight. We are going to be going through Job chapter 12 and part of 13. So the chapter numbers sometimes are kind of in a weird place, but this portion of Job goes from chapter 12 all the way up to verse 19, and chapter 13 is where Job is addressing his friends here. In some Bibles or commentaries, it'll say this is Job's address to that third friend, but the way that Job is talking here, he's talking to like the group of his friends here. And it's kind of interesting. In this part of Job is now not just defending himself, but he kind of goes a little bit more on the attack and points out the wrongdoings of his friends here. So it's pretty interesting. And so this chapter, in chapter 12, starts off with Job rebuking his friends. And this may or may not work, so we'll see. But Job is going to start off rebuking them in verses 1 to 6. And he actually ends this discourse here before he turns to his prayer with rebuking them as well. And so he gives his reason. So just like his friends were setting up their arguments against him, he's now going to, like a lawyer, set up his argument against them, right? And so chapter 12, starting at verse 1, and verses 1 to 6 here, it says, "Then Job answered and said, 'No doubt you are the people, and wisdom will die with you.'" And so they're claiming to be wise, but what Job is saying is really the people that you're talking about, his friends, the type of person that they have been talking about. He's saying you're actually that person. You are those people, and so you are those wicked people that you claim that I am. Is what Job's going to point out here. It says, "But I have understanding as well as you. I am not inferior to you. Indeed, who does not know? Who does not know such things as these?" So his answer to their accusations and their statements here are that everybody knows the things that you've been saying. Everybody knows those things. And so, sorry, I got a little bit distracted. Let me just gather my thoughts real quick. So basically, everything that they've been stating here, all the accusations towards him, he's acknowledging that they're using facts here to get at him. But he's going to point out they're really using this truth in the wrong way. And so you can use a verse, right? People can quote scripture and things like that. People can and do this a lot, where they use a verse of the Bible and totally use it in the wrong way. What's the most famous one that non-Christians use against Christians? Judge not, right? Judge not lest you be judged. They're completely taken out of context, but it is a true statement, what they're saying, but they a lot of times use it in totally the wrong way and out of context. And so, and so Job is pointing this out here, that he knows everything that they're saying, and he's not inferior to them. He's actually older and wiser than them by their own customs, because he's been around here. Even the implication that they had brought up earlier was that Job was the one that was really teaching them about God earlier. And so now they have been using Job's own teachings against him. And so he's throwing this back at them there. Verse 4, it says, "I am one mocked by his friends." So what was one of the things that they were accusing him of doing? Mocking God, right? So Job is saying, no, I'm the one that's mocked. Okay. Then he says, "Who called on God, and he answered him. The just and blameless who is ridiculed." So now again, Job is kind of getting more into this self-righteousness here. So he's saying, I'm just and blameless, and I'm being ridiculed by these wicked people, right? Then he says here, and this one I had to actually look at I had to look this up because this is one of those phrases that's interesting. It says, a lamp is despised in the thought of one who is at ease. It is made ready for those whose feet slip. And so this verse here, again, I had to kind of look that up. I didn't really totally understand what it was saying. Then after I looked it up, I'm like, oh, that's what it means. So when it's saying one who is at ease, right, it's talking about one who's sleeping. And so isn't it frustrating, like if someone ever comes in and turns a light on while you're sleeping, that would kind of upset you, right? But in order to not stumble in the dark, what do you need? You need a light, right? You need a lamp. And so what he's saying is you use this lamp when you are stumbling in the dark, but as soon as you want to go down to go to sleep, what do? You turn it off, you throw it away, right? And so what Job is doing here is he's comparing himself to the lamp. He's saying, and his friends are the ones that are despising him now. So he's saying to his friends, you used me when you needed something, when you needed guidance and all of this, and now you despise me. And because you're not the one that's going through something. So that's what his friends are doing to him. So that's what verse 5 means there. Then verse 6 here it says, and this is another one that I had to kind of look into. There's some heavy translation work that was done here that you can read different translations of the Bible and kind of get totally different renderings of this. But it says here, the tents of robbers prosper, and those who provoke God are secure in what God provides by his hand. And so it's like, well, what does that mean there? Well, so what he's saying is because their logic, right, was God punishes those who are wrongdoers. Okay? But he says, what Job's pointing out here is, who is wealthier when someone robs you? Who ends up prospering when someone robs you? Like if someone were to steal from your house, who's the richer one? The robber, right? Take it back to their house. And so who's got the better house at that point? The robber. And so Job is pointing out that this world is full, even at that time, is full of those who are wicked that are prospering, while those who are righteous are suffering. And so he's again laying out this argument that the reason for suffering cannot be because of someone is good or bad. Okay? And so then he goes on here. And this is a pretty interesting passage here. But basically, Job is going to start talking about how everything has its place and things really just happen. Okay? Things just happen, and it's not according to any set of rules. Okay? And so, verses 7 to 12, it says here, but now ask the beasts, and they will teach you, and the birds of the air, and they will tell you. So he's talking about the order of things. So ask the animals, right? Ask the creatures of this world. They will tell you, in the point that he's making here is, they will tell you, well, predators eat other animals that are weaker, right? So the food chain, if you're higher up on the food chain, you prosper while other things don't. And so everything has its place. Then it says, or speak to the earth, and it will teach you, and the fish of the sea will explain to you. So look around in nature. Who among these does not know that the hand of the Lord has done this? And so now he's actually going to get more into, well, God is at the top of everything. Okay? And so everything happens according to God's will, which is a true statement. But Job, again, just like his friends, comes to a wrong conclusion. Then it says here, in whose hand is the life of every living thing and the breath of all mankind. Does not the ear test words and the mouth taste its food? So the ear does things and the mouth does its thing. They don't do each other's things, right? And then it says, wisdom is with aged men. So I'm wiser than you, is what Job is saying here. So comparing places, right? So he's saying, you've been saying all this stuff to me. Well, you're actually the younger ones, and it's my place to correct you, not your place to correct me. Then he says here, and with length of days, understanding. And so wisdom is for older people, okay? Well, then Job continues here, And so he said all of that. Everything has its place in nature. The beasts will tell you, the animals, the birds will tell you, everything will tell you that, or the earth will tell you. And even amongst people, there's a hierarchy, and he's saying based off of age. Well, who's at the top? Who's the oldest? Right? God is highest. And so Job is saying here, he continues, I'm going to read to verse 25 here, because this all goes together. It says, with him are wisdom and strength. And so God is at the top of this, is what he's saying. So when he says with him are wisdom and strength, he's not saying only God has wisdom and strength. He's saying God is the most. Okay? And then he says, he has counsel and understanding. If he breaks a thing down, it cannot be rebuilt. If he imprisons a man, there can be no release. So whatever God does can't be fought against. Okay? Then it says here, if he withholds waters, they dry up. So the earth obeys him as well. If he sends them out, they overwhelm the earth. With him are strength and prudence. So stopping just for a second, everything in this world, Job is saying, is done by God. Okay? God is in control of everything. He's the most powerful. So just like the predators devour the prey really indiscriminately, that's really what Job is going to get at, is God is being indiscriminate with his judgment, just like the animals. He's getting here, there's no difference between people now. And so he ends this sentence here, or there's another sentence. It says, the deceived and the deceiver are his. And so God is at the top of everything, and it is true, he causes everything. He is the source of everything. So then there must be this is Job's conclusion, there must be no difference between people, because people who are doing terrible things can prosper, and people who are not doing bad things can prosper, or they can both suffer, and there's really no difference. And then so it says here, and by the way, I'm not saying Job is right. This is Job's thinking here. And so it says here, he leads counselors away, so he leaves smart people away, right? Plundered, and makes fools of the judges. So people that think they're high, God will bring them low. It says, he loosens the bonds of kings and binds their waist with a belt. It makes things harder for them. He leads princes away plundered and overthrows the mighty. He deprives the trusted ones of speech and takes away the discernment of the elders. He pours contempt on princes, and disarms the mighty. He uncovers deep things out of darkness and brings the shadow of death to life. So these are good things now. He makes nations great and destroys them. He enlarges nations and guides them. He takes away the understanding of the chiefs of the people of the earth and makes them wander in a pathless wilderness. So God can enlarge nations and guide them, but he can also make them wander, right? Then it says here, they grope in the dark without light, and he makes them stagger like a drunken man. And so Job is, again, this is like his argument here about God, is that God lifts up some and destroys others. And so remember, the whole argument of his friends is God is doing this to you because you are a wicked person. Job is saying, well, it is true that God does everything, but it's not, it must not be according to whether or not someone is wicked. Then Job goes back to rebuking his friends. So now, he set up his kind of defense there. Now he's in these verses. He's going to set up an argument the exact same way they were doing to him. And so first, on this, Job in chapter 13 has an accusation for his friends, and I would say Job's argument is much better than his friends here, because it's literally based off of the conversations that they're having. So Job is pulling the evidence from the direct situation there, which the fourth friend later is actually going to do as well to both of them. But in Job 13, verses 1 through 5, it says, "Behold, my eye has seen all this." Okay, so he's drawing understanding from the world around him right now. It says, "My ear has heard and understood it. What you know, I also know. I am not inferior to you." This is the second time that he's brought up. So he feels like they've been lifting themselves above him. And he's saying, no, I was the one that was teaching you. Should Job be saying all this of himself? Probably not. And so, Job is, remember, nowhere throughout this has Job been talking about how righteous God is and how righteous, or how good God is. Job, the basis of his defense is what? His own righteousness. And that will come up again later. So it says, "But I would speak to the Almighty, and I desire to reason with God. But you, forgers of lies, you are worthless physicians. Oh, that you would be silent, and it would be your wisdom." Has anyone ever gone to the doctor and the doctor's like, you're like, well, I've been feeling this way and I started doing this to take care of it. And the doctor's like, okay, good. Keep doing that. And by the way, pay me for the visit, right? You're like, well, thanks. You just basically told me to do what I was already doing and now I have to pay you for that? This is what Job's friends have been doing to him. Right? They've been telling him a whole bunch of true things, but none of which really applied to him. And so he's saying, you're worthless physicians. I went to you for help and you did nothing for me. Right? And he says, you are forgers of lies. And Job is going to go into this more, the idea that they're liars, because liars can use bits of truth to still lie. They'll twist the truth. In fact, the best liars are the ones that twist the truth. And so it says, "Oh, that you would be silent, and it would be your wisdom." There's a famous quote from Abraham Lincoln. He said, "It's better to remain quiet and be thought a fool than to open your mouth and to remove all doubt." So this is what Job is saying. Be silent. That way people will still keep thinking you're smart. So there's his accusation there, that they're liars, that they have been worthless to him. But mainly the fact that they're these forgers of lies, that he's accusing them of wickedness here. And Job's reasoning for that comes in verses 6 to 12. It says here, "Now hear my reasoning." So that's the way I knew that his reason was coming, right? He says, "Now hear my reasoning." So that makes it easy. "And heed the pleading of my lips. Will you speak wickedly for God?" So what were these friends claiming to do? They were claiming to speak on the behalf of God and telling Job all of these wicked things when they didn't telling Job that he was doing all these wicked things when they didn't really know. And so, will you speak wickedly for God and talk deceitfully for him? What were they using to go against Job? They were using a whole bunch of things that they had been taught that were true things, true statements, right? But directing them towards Job in his suffering was the wrong thing. It says, "Will you show partiality for him? Will you contend for God?" So he's saying, why not let God speak instead of you trying to say that you're sent by God to talk for him? This is frustrating sometimes in the world today, especially with the apostolic movement, right? Their preachers don't just claim to be preachers. They claim to be like prophets and things like that. The charismatic people are like, no, I have divinely appointed authority to do this. I'm sorry, I can only try to share what I've learned in Scripture. Like that, I can be very wrong at times, and in fact, I probably am wrong at times. But I would never claim to be sent by God as without scripture, right, to be able to talk to you all. And that's what his friends were doing, right? Then it says here, will it be well when he searches you out? So he's saying, this is going to come back to bite you, right? And it says, or can you mock him as one mocks a man? He will surely rebuke you if you secretly show partiality. Will not his excellence make you afraid and the dread of him fall on you? You should be scared, is what he's saying to his friends, for what you've been doing. You've been misusing God's teachings, because it wouldn't be written scripture at this time. But they've been misusing it, even though they were using some, right? It says, then this is what he's saying. Your platitudes of proverbs are ashes. So all this wise speaking that they were doing, your platitudes of proverbs is what their speeches that sound very good. They're of ashes. And your defenses are defenses of clay. So instead of like stone, it's clay. It's easily broken, right? And so that's his reasoning for the accusation against him, which actually is a very good reasoning. It's exactly what they were doing. And then, this is actually a very beautiful part of this passage. In the midst of all this, we've seen Job go up and down with his anger, but he hasn't cursed God, but he's been upset, right? Well, here in his defense of his faith here, it's a very good show of Job's faith in God. Job's faith in God has not been shaken throughout all of this, even though he's been upset at times. So he doesn't understand God's ways, and that's where Job's coming from. He is questioning God's reasoning behind things, but he's still faithful, which is amazing to see this here. And so verses 13 to 19, it says, hold your peace with me and let me speak. So be quiet and let me talk. So you can imagine his friends probably were wanting to interject at this point, but Job's not done. It says, then let come on me what may. Why do I make my flesh in my teeth? And so he's grinding, and then it says, and put my life in my hands. So he's willing to die for what he's saying here. It says, though he may slay me, yet I will trust him. So he doesn't understand God's reasoning behind things. He doesn't understand, why all this sufferings come upon him. Even if he dies, even if he's going to die, what is Job going to do? He's going to trust God in this. So even in the midst of what his friends have been saying about him, all the stuff that has happened, he's still going to trust God. It says, even so, and then this is where Job kind of goes bad a little bit. I will defend my own ways before him. So he still thinks he's blameless in all this. But he says, he also shall be my salvation. For a hypocrite could not come before him. And it says, listen carefully to my speech and to my declaration with your ears. See, now I have prepared my case. So he's talking about what he's going to say to God, right? Because at the beginning of chapter 13, he's saying, I'm done talking to you. I'm going to talk to God. I'm going to make my case before God. He said, I'm done talking to you. And then he went for 19 verses talking to them still. But he says here, see, now I have prepared my case, and now I know that I shall be vindicated. Who is he who will contend with me? If I hold my tongue, I perish. Job's saying at the end of this to his friends, if I don't plead my case to God, I'm going to die. That's where the situation that Job sees himself in. And so, do you think that shut his friends up? No, that's only the first discourse there between them. That's only the first series of back and forths. These are his friends and him. Remember, they're both wrong about God, but so it's Job is like watching two groups of people argue about something that they both don't have understanding on. I was watching a podcast the other day, and they were talking about God, and this is This was an atheist and an agnostic trying to talk about Christianity. And I'm like, you guys both don't know what you're talking about. That's what Job is here. Like that's what this part of Job is. And so it's not until later that you see the corrections come in. And so it's pretty interesting. But that's all I have for you guys tonight.